Now, back to your turn on 1330 WEBY, Northwest Florida's talk radio. The phone lines are open, so call in and join the conversation at 623-1330.
And now, the Commander-in-Chief is back. Freedom Friday with Carl Gallops, the Oval Office of Gulf Coast Talk Radio.
All right, welcome back, Gulf Coast. Welcome back, America. Welcome back, world. And you are listening to Freedom Friday, as my good friend just said. And then, of course, Mallory Bardwell is your world-famous producer. And as I have promised, Mike Zullo, the lead investigator with the Sheriff Arpaio investigation, is here with us today by telephone. And Mike, you there?
Yeah, Carl, how are
okay,
you
doing fantastic. And Mike has graciously agreed to give us an hour and a half of his time. So for the rest of this show, and this is a special edition of Freedom Friday, it will be Mike Zullo and myself, and we'll be taking your phone calls. Now, I say we, of course, because I've been on this for a long time, and I can answer a lot of questions, but I would much rather you hear from Mike Zullo as much as possible. So here's what I want to tell you folks. About 2 hours before the show, the phone started ringing here in the studio literally nonstop, and that's without any exaggeration at all. When I walked in about an hour before, Mallory was just going crazy. All the lines ringing, people, they're mixed up on time zones, wanting to make sure and how and when and where. Plus, people are trying all over the world to get through on our live stream server. So let me tell you, folks, if you click on the live stream, and you can get there at 1330weby.com or carlgallops.com, listen live link. If you click on it and you get an error page or a blank page, or it just is not working, it's because of one of two reasons. It's either an absolute slam dunk user overload situation, which could be, and I mean, we've upgraded and we've got huge bandwidth, but I mean, this is a very popular show, and with Mike Zullo on today, it's even more popular, so it could be that it's just slammed that way. Plus, we have had cyber attacks before, and we've been threatened with them. Mike and I are aware of that might happen today. So for those of you that are able to listen, let me tell you this so that you can jump on Facebook and tweet and let people know, on Twitter, and let people know the different options they have. First of all, of course, they can listen by radio. We cover 4 states on the Gulf Coast, so if you're in the Gulf Coast area, you can hear us. But otherwise, if you can't get on the live stream, if you'll jump on Facebook and Twitter and let people know, if they will go to tuninradio.com, and or download the app, TuneIn Radio app, on their smartphone. We do know that is up. Various folks are listening and telling us that they're listening on their smartphones live right now. And so I think you can listen on the Internet that way as well. So those are options. Now, if that doesn't work, then do not fret, because tomorrow you'll be able to go to carlgallops.com, click on the podcast link, and download the whole show or any portions thereof. Listen to whatever you want, anytime you want. Plus, I know Mike Shoesmith over at PP Simmons is going to be making video/audios of this entire program and pasting and posting all over the Internet on PP Simmons YouTube, the 4 or 5 PP Simmons Facebook properties, the PP Simmons blog spot, which is syndicated to 20 different news sites, etc. So we'll probably have them available up at carlgallops.com as well. So if folks are missing the show live right now, I'm so sorry. It's just that popular of a show. Don't worry, because you'll be able to hear it all tomorrow. Now, for those of you that are calling in, here are the ground rules. We got an hour and a half, so we've got several lines, and they roll over. If you call and the lines are busy, just my advice is to put it in your what's it called, speed dial, your line memory. Put it in speed dial, and whenever you hear somebody ask a question and or hang up, then you just punch it and try to get in right behind them. If you get in the queue, be patient and hang on, because Mike's going to be answering questions, and he's going to answer them thoroughly. And plus, we'll have a few commercial breaks. So just because you're in the queue doesn't mean you're going to be up in 5 seconds. It might be 5 minutes before you're up, but if you'll hang on and be patient, we'll get you live on the air. Now, the only rule that I have is that no personal attacks. I mean, I've got my finger on the button here, the off button. If somebody calls up and just starts calling names and trashing Mike or me, I'm just going to cut you off, and we're going to move on. But everyone else, it doesn't matter. I mean, you can disagree. with this whole thing that Mike is doing and Arpaio is doing and that I'm doing? And you call and tell us why, though. Ask questions. I mean, tell us why. Give us evidence. You can agree, you can disagree. There might be things you're confused about, things you would like more information on, things that you'd like cleared up, questions you have. That's why Mike Zullo's here. He has nothing to hide. I have nothing to hide. We can tell you who does have something to hide, and we're going to tell you the evidence that we've come upon lately and things that may be getting ready to happen very soon. We'll tell you all of that. There are going to be revelations throughout this show. There's going to be some surprising information, so you don't want to miss any of it. All right, I've said all that. Now, Mike Zullo, let me just ask you, let's go ahead and do this right up front. We're going to pretend like that a bunch of our listeners really know very little about all of this. And so I'm just going to ask you, tell people who you are. Tell them about your background. Tell them about your qualifications, how you got involved in this, and what your position is. I mean, you know, what do you do in this? Who are you? Tell folks.
Carl, I'm a former law enforcement officer from New Jersey. I was a detective in New Jersey. I was a trained investigator. I was trained in New Jersey in fingerprint identification, narcotics investigation, homicide investigation, and as a matter of fact, took one of the very first domestic violence investigation courses that were offered when that was, becoming law. After my stint with New Jersey, I became a licensed investigator in the state of New Jersey. In 2005, I believe it was, I joined the sheriff's posse after I moved to Arizona. And subsequently, in 2007, I was asked by Sheriff Arpaio if I would head up a newly formed cold case posse that he was starting. And for those that you don't know, posse is a volunteer organization. Mm-hmm. You take people with certain skill sets, and the sheriff's office supplements their own forces with these folks. As a result of accepting the sheriff's offer, I received AZ post-certified training again in homicide investigation in Arizona, cold case investigation in Arizona, MCSO trained in investigative techniques, including surveillance and counter-surveillance, and high-risk criminal apprehension training. I am currently the commander of the cold case posse going on 7 years, and I'm Sheriff Arpaio's chief investigator on this eligibility issue.
Okay, well, that's wonderful. So you're a cop.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, you are. You are. So thank you so much for sharing all of that. I know people have asked me, and I've been real close on nailing that, but that's great. I even learned a few things about you there. That's awesome, Mike. I appreciate that. Let me say to our callers, listen, we're going to go straight to the lines because the lines have been jammed for the last 2 hours, but let me just say to our callers now, we're going to start taking these calls, and Mike's going to start answering these questions, but we're going to just ask you to do this. Limit the call to one question, okay? Don't come on and pontificate. Don't come on and for 30 minutes think you're going to give us your comments or your observations. That would be unfair to the rest of our listeners. Just come on, ask your question, state your case, and then get off the line, let Mike answer it, and let somebody else call in, all right? Let's do it that way. All right, we've got a caller named Mike who wants to talk to the investigator named Mike, and Mike, you want to talk to Mike about what's going on in Hawaii. Welcome to Freedom Friday.
Yes, thank you, Carl, and thank you, Mike.
You're welcome.
And thank both of you for going to CPAC last week.
Oh, God bless you.
Thank you.
Mike, I wanted to ask you, when the White House issued that phony forged birth certificate on the White House website, there was a letter that was also, along with that, from Obama's attorneys and Obama, and he requested to the state of Hawaii a copy of his birth certificate. And the governor responded with a letter that we don't normally do this, but in your case, we'll release a copy of your birth certificate. Are you investigating any of the aspects of those letters?
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, Mike, we are. As a matter of fact, I could add a little clarity to that. The letters that were issued were in response to Hawaii's standing practice, I believe back in the year 2000. They made a decision to no longer issue long-form birth certificates. And this was not done by any legislative action. This was done by policy. And the administration requested a long form on behalf of the president. Now, they're making a big deal out of this. If you look at Hawaii statutes, it is permissible to issue a long-form birth certificate. All this really was nothing more than a change in policy or a deviation from policy.
Right.
There was no big, extensive legal analysis that really had to be done. As a matter of fact, I believe within issuing the letter, he got a long-form birth certificate purportedly released within 3 days.
Yeah.
I mean, so this notion that this was an impossibility is really being hyped. It's really not.
Right.
It's nothing more than a request. And I also understand that anyone can make the request. It's up to the director of the Department of Health to honor it or not.
Right. And certainly the man who's sitting in the White House as POTUS could have his attorney's request, and certainly that request would be honored.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. All right. Well, Mike, listen, let's go back to the phone lines, and they're still jammed. Folks, when you hear people ask a question and hang up, that's your chance to hit that redial. Let's go to John. John, welcome to Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups. You want to ask Lieutenant Zullo something about the grand jury. John? John, are you there? Okay. See, that's what happens, folks, when you're not patient. Listen, folks, let me just say this. If you're not willing to be patient, please don't call and tie up the lines, okay? But in the meantime, we've got some lines open, and we've got more people on the line, and Mallory's still doing some screening. So, Mike, let me just ask you, when you were asked by Sheriff Arpaio to come on as the lead investigator for this case, the specific thing you were asked was to take a look at that long-form birth certificate that was finally released by the White House, and Obama stated that this is it, it's on the website, that's my birth certificate. He did that in a nationally televised press conference, and then, of course, later on, people began looking at it, and it looked like it was forged or fraudulent, and so Sheriff Arpaio, tell the folks how you got involved. Why did Arpaio get involved, and why did you get involved in that?
Sheriff Arpaio was actually put into a corner on this way by about some folks from a surprise Tea Party here in Arizona, where they commissioned 250 folks to sign petitions requesting that the sheriff look into the birth certificate. They felt that this birth certificate had some problems with it, and they were in fear that their voting rights were going to be violated.
Mm-hmm.
Arpaio looked at this, didn't really know anything about the matter, took it under advisement, and as fate would have it, one morning I get a call to come in and see the sheriff. I go in and see him, and he explains this to me. And, Sheriff Arpaio looked me right dead in the eye, and he goes, Mike, I don't really think there's anything here, but if we can clear the president, let's clear the president and move on. The country needs to move on from this.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how we took it.
Okay.
And that's how we got here.
Okay. All right. Fantastic. And it's my understanding that you even had folks on the cold case posse at first that were, big Obama supporters, and kind of snickered a little bit and said, well, this will be easy to deal with. Surely the man in the White House doesn't have a fraudulent birth certificate up there. We ought to be able to handle this pretty quickly. I know I'm paraphrasing, but didn't something like that happen?
Yeah, we never picked anybody to work on this in the very beginning. Based on political affiliation or likes or dislikes.
Right.
As it unfolded, we found out where some of these people stood. And I myself, I was never following this. I mean, I heard about it.
Right.
I was not a political junkie. I never followed politics. I didn't think this thing was false either, to be candid with you. It was about 72 hours later that I had to call the sheriff and tell him I think we have a problem.
Right.
And that's how we ended up in this almost now 19th month investigation. I think it's going closer to 2 years.
Yeah, it's very close to it. All right, I think we've got John back on the line. John, welcome to Freedom Friday. Sorry we missed you a minute ago, but I'm glad you're back. You want to talk about grand juries. Go ahead.
Yes, hi, Lieutenant. How you doing, Pastor?
Thank you. Doing great.
Well, it's an honor to speak with you guys. Real quick, I just wanted to know why, with all the evidence that has been compiled, that a citizen's grand jury or a federal grand jury hasn't been assembled to take care of this problem and review the evidence that you guys have and just eliminate the situation.
Okay, thank you so much, John. Mike, what do you know about citizens' grand juries, and would they have any jurisdiction or power in this? I mean, how does that work? Do you know anything about that?
You know, what little I do know, I know that there is provision for a citizens' grand jury. I believe Justice Scalia recognized them in some opinion somewhere. But to be really candid with you, I think they would be more symbolic than anything else. And we have to be cautious as a law enforcement organization. We don't want to take our information, our evidence, and just put it out there for a symbolic gesture.
Right.
That's not what we're here to do.
Right.
I mean, we wouldn't be pursuing this if we didn't believe full-heartedly that we have the evidence required to drive the stake in the heart of this document.
Right, right.
And we're just not going to throw it out there just because someone desires to symbolize, a patriotic act. As much as I could appreciate that, we just can't do that.
Right. Right. No, I understand that completely, and I'm so glad he asked that question, and I'm so glad you answered it. Let's go back to the phone lines. Shirley, welcome to Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups and Mike Zullo. You have a question about Congress for Lieutenant Zullo. Go ahead, Shirley.
Yes, Mike. I'm not sitting here idle. I have faxed my senator. I faxed the prosecuting attorney. I've even sent emails to Inquirer that says, you've read it here first. I've accused him of running John Kerry with his child, Lorenzi Larez. I said, here's some news. Why don't you print it? I said, here's the facts. And I also know that Senator Blunt has known about this 41,000 people that impeach Obama because he made a remark on the other lady that's trying to, Oli or where. He made a remark when it came to 41,000. Here's my question. In Alan West, I heard that interview. If the Senate knows it, and the Congress knows it, and the House knows it, why do they keep bartering deals with him when it's void? He's not our president. Why do they keep doing this? I mean, everything that he's done has to be undone. He's not.
Thank you, Shirley. I'm sorry. Okay, Mike, do you have an answer for? And then I tell you what, Mike, hold your answer. We've got to take a break. Okay, Mike?
Okay.
Okay, fantastic. We'll answer Shirley's question on the other side of this break. You're listening to Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups. Mike Zullo, lead investigator for the Arpaio investigation, our guest today. You don't want to miss the rest of the show. He'll be on for the next hour and 15 minutes.
Welcome back to Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups. Sit down, buckle up, and hang on.
All right, folks, welcome back to Freedom Friday. Carl Gallups, Lieutenant Mike Zullo with us, lead investigator, Sheriff Arpaio. You want to try to answer Shirley's question there, Mike, and then we're up against another hard break, but we got an hour after that.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a little difficult to answer that because obviously, no matter what the consensus is, whether we all agree that he's illegitimate or not, the fact is he's a sitting United States president, and that's who they have to work with. I can't speak really to that. But what I can tell you is I am very concerned that the way that this has been portrayed to the American people about citizenship, about coming through solely through the mother, I believe you can go back into history and you could find out where they may have that backwards.
Yeah.
And that the citizenship is conferred through the father. And if that is the case, if it's determined later on that that is the case, there is a problem here because even by omission, the man's purported father was not a United States citizen.
That's right. That's right. Even if he is the one, you're right. And something you and I have been emphasizing, even though what you said is true and you need to say that, is that this case that you have before you, this criminal legal case, is not really a birther issue, although that may prove to be a big deal in this. But the issue you have is a fraudulent, forged, fabricated document, a crime, a federal a felonious crime has been committed in or and around the White House, and that's what you're proffering to people who have some standing to get something done about it, right?
Well, that's correct. And go one step further. I mean, let's be real about this, Carl. We're looking at probably the greatest fraud ever perpetrated against the American people in history.
Yeah.
If not the history, well, I can't say the history of the world because there was worse things done, but this is monumental for this country.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry. I was going to say it is, and it may be in the history of the world as far as a fraud goes, in that we are the number one superpower of the world, the number one superpower in world history. There's never been one that has had this much power and influence and wealth, and for it to be taken perhaps by complete fraud would have to be one of the greatest frauds in world history.
Could very well be.
Yeah.
And what else it does, if I could just real quick, what else it does, it attacks us at our very core foundational principles that we're a nation of law, not a nation of men. And no one's above the law. It doesn't matter who you are.
Right.
Anybody possessing this document, trying to use this document for gain, would be arrested and prosecuted.
Right.
And as clear cut as that.
Yeah, at a very simple level, if I went and fabricated a birth certificate put it in multiple layers, and just made it say what I wanted it to say to represent me, Carl Gallups. And if I took that birth certificate and tried to gain employment with it where somebody would pay me, or tried to gain a service that was valuable to me, or tried to represent myself as somebody I wasn't so that I could advance my cause, all of those would be considered crimes. They would be considered felonies. More than likely, I'd wind up in prison. Am I right?
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
So aren't we dealing with the very same thing, except at a much larger scale?
I don't know if there's ever been something as large as this under the fraud statute, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about the most powerful man in the world.
I know. And the bottom line is, as of right now, you're holding in your possession massive files of a almost 2-year criminal investigation proving that the documents are fraudulent. So thus far, all we know is the man in the White House, with the documents he's provided thus far, he is not legally able to be there. He's committed fraud against the American people, right?
That's a little bit of a stretch, Carl, because I don't know if I could say that. What I could tell you is that the document that he presented is not a representation of any official,
there you go.
in any official capacity of where this man was born.
There you go. That's the better way of saying it. We'll clear all that up when we come back. Folks, we've got to take a time out. It'll be about 3 or 4 minutes. We'll be back for an hour with Mike Zullo taking your calls. Hang on. We got a lot of show left. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups. You are in the Oval Office, the White House, of Gulf Coast Talk Radio, broadcasting to parts of 4 states along the Gulf Coast, and broadcasting to the nation and the world by live stream on the internet. Carl is not ashamed of the Word of God, the Constitution, or the Declaration of Independence. He does not care about political correctness, nor does he depend upon a teleprompter or popularity polls. Carl stands for truth, reason, and common sense. Carl firmly believes that America is God's gift to the world. If any of that interests you, you are at the right place. Freedom Friday on 1330 WEBY. Now, here's Carl Gallups.
All right, welcome back, America. Welcome back, world. Welcome back, Gulf Coast. You are listening to Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups, Mallory Bardwell, your world-famous producer, and we are at the top of the second hour, and our guest this afternoon in this very special edition is Mike Zullo, the lead investigator, commander of the Cold Case Posse, Sheriff Arpaio, out of Maricopa County, Arizona, examining the fraudulent, forged, fabricated document, the only identifying document that the White House has proffered on who this man in the White House is, who this commander-in-chief is. The only identifying document they've brought forth is a 100% criminal investigation, legally proven fabrication. Am I right, Mike Zullo?
I would agree with you 100%.
Okay. Now, let me say this, and then we're going to go to our callers. And then, Mike, of course, I want you to comment on it. Back in the first press conference that Sheriff Arpaio held, and you were there, of course, as the commander of that investigation. Arpaio said it, then you said it, you guys said it. I don't know who said it when, first, whatever, but the two of you have said this over and over. For the naysayers, for even the Obama bot, those that are just so in love with Obama that they just think that Mike Zullo's a liar, Carl Gallups is a liar, and everybody else is a liar. Let me just say this. Arpaio said, I remember when he said it, he sounded like a grandfather. He was so calm and so courteous, and he said, he was just so nice. I remember he said, look, he said, I have no desire to destroy this president in any way. He said, this is a simple matter. It's a simple matter. He said, the document we have is a false document. It's no good. So all we ask is for the president to bring us forth the original document, the microfilm document, so we can examine it, and we'll clear him. We will clear him, and we will shout it to the world. Mike, that's all you guys have ever wanted is the truth. Am I right? But in the meantime, instead of bringing forth a real document, all you've gotten is further cover-up, further name-calling, crashing websites, obfuscation. I mean, what's up with that? Am I right?
You're 100% right. I mean, the sheriff said it in the very beginning. Just show us the microfilm, and we can make this all go away. the situation that unfolded was something I was never expecting. I've never been part of a disinformation campaign, and I've been educated now on disinformation and disinformation techniques. And one of the paramount things is what happened with the media blackout. You know, if they don't report on it, it didn't happen.
Right.
They keep people in the dark. You know, they use tactics as ridicule. They try to dominate discussions on message boards. They make outrageous comments. They make false accusations. They do a whole host of things trying to sway people from the truth, trying to stop people from looking at that chain of evidence.
Right.
And it's something that I never had this experience with. You know, they'll even go as far as setting up straw men to create like an element of an argument or the opponent's argument that they could easily debunk. And they try to take that to chip away at the truth.
Right.
And their methodology is, if we could, quote, debunk, and that word has been thrown around all over the place.
Right.
People don't know what it really means. If they can debunk one item, something you say, they nullify the whole investigation.
Right.
Well, unfortunately for them, it doesn't work like that.
No, not in a criminal investigation, right?
No, it doesn't work like that. But what's going on now and what's being waged against the American people is techniques being used that are called psyops. And they're psychological operations, and they're used to keep you in the dark. I mean, if you are just a common individual, you don't have to be a law enforcement officer, you don't have to be a professor. If I brought you in and I showed you in layman's terms this document, there is only one conclusion you can come to.
Right.
That this thing was put together piece by piece.
Right.
They are doing everything they can to nullify it. They'll even go as far as creating their own expert environment.
Right.
Trying to give themselves authority with so-called experts that aren't experts at all.
Right. Right. In fact, they're irrelevant.
They are irrelevant. They're completely irrelevant. The best way you deal with them is to use the same technique that they're using on the American people. Don't talk to them.
Yeah. Just ignore them. And that's what
and that's what the White House has really done on this issue.
Right.
They never really addressed this issue. The only time they really addressed this issue is when they came up with the phony document.
Right. Yeah, well, and that's what you and I have been doing, just ignoring them because they are irrelevant. Well, listen, Mike, let's go back to the phone lines. Now, folks, hang on. We've got about 45 minutes of program left, and Mike and I, in just a little bit, we're going to be making some announcements that you've not heard, bringing forth as much information as we can, a couple of surprises, and some updates on what's going on, what may happen very soon, some new information that's come to light on this case, and there is some potentially very, very exciting progress being made. We'll tell you about that in a little bit, so you hang on and listen. But in the meantime, let's be courteous and go to the callers that have been waiting so long. Michael, welcome to Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups, and you're on with Mike Zullo. So, Michael, ask your question of Mike.
Good evening, Pastor Gallups and Lieutenant Zulu. God bless you. I pray for you. Thank you for giving me the time to come on air here and for all you've done. In Illinois and in other states, there are ballot objections. And in Illinois, it was specifically placed in on the record by the Illinois Board of Elections. There's a document ruling on January 27th of 2012 that says the birth certificate attached, referring to Mr. Obama's birth certificate attached as an Exhibit A, clearly established the candidate's eligibility for office as a natural-born citizen on January 27th. And then on February 2nd, in their final decision, the Board of Elections stated that the copy of the candidate's birth certificate establishes the candidate's eligibility for office of the President of the United States as a natural-born citizen, as is required by Article 2, Section 1 of the United States Constitution. With that being said, and knowing that you have proven that this is nothing more than a document, what can be done about this? Can criminal complaints be filed with the DA or the AG? That's my question.
Thank you, Michael. God bless you.
Mike, here's the short answer to that. Could criminal complaints be filed? I guess someone could take the document. The document was offered. We have the evidence that, to the contrary, that the document offered was not authentic. Therefore, no evidence was offered to satisfy the requirement or what the court was asking for. But the long and short of it is, to get a prosecutor or an attorney general, you need someone who's willing to take this on. And The problem that we've been running into is the same problem that I just described earlier with this whole disinformation campaign. Ridicule is the number one weapon that keeps people away. It's very difficult to defend yourself against being ridiculed. And you have to find someone who's brave enough to take this on. And that's what we're trying to do. I don't want to give away your thunder, Carl.
Yeah.
But that's what we're trying to do moving forward, and we'll save that for the rest of the show.
Well, absolutely, because we think we have found a handful of people who are brave enough, and we'll talk about that and give away. We'll blow this thunder here in just a few moments. But right now, and thanks, Mike. Right now, let's go back to the phone lines. We're going to take this call, then we're going to take a break, and then we'll take more calls. So we've got a few phone lines open, but they fill up quickly. So you're going to want to call 850-623-1330, 850-623-1330. Sherry, welcome to Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups. You're on with Mike Zullo. Ask your question, Sherry. You want to ask about the investigation.
Thank you, Carl. I'm a Canadian grandmother, a non-politically correct Christian, and I've followed this issue for 4 to 5 years now. I've read tens of thousands of pages, scores of videos, and I concluded long ago that Obama was never born in Hawaii. But having said that, there's been many investigations going on, one of them being the Orly Tates investigation, being the most prominent. Working on the Obama birth certificate and fraudulent Social Security number. I'm wondering why you haven't been combining your efforts on this. As she, managed to get an interview with SCOTUS on it, and in fact, certain people, key people there, were not even given the evidence she produced, and she subpoenaed them on it. So, how can this be married together, or can it be?
Thank you. That's a brilliant question, Sherry. I know that Mike has been asked that a lot, and I know he's anxious to answer it. So, Mike, you want to answer a question?
Yeah, Sherry, to address your question, the problem that we have here is the majority of Orly Tates' work has been done in the civil arena. We are in the criminal arena. We're in a different court, a different set of standards, different burdens of proof.
Right.
And our burdens are a lot higher. If you go back to the O.J. Simpson trial, he was found innocent in criminal court, but he was convicted in civil court. Lower standard of evidence. We are compelled to have a higher standard of evidence. In other words, we have to go to make an arrest, probable cause, saying we believe a crime has been committed because X, 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 and X. But when it gets adjudicated, it has to be beyond a reasonable doubt.
Right.
So we have a higher standard of evidence. We cannot take our criminal evidence and marry it into a civil trial.
Right.
You just can't do it.
Yeah, and I'm going to say I appreciate what Orly's doing, and I know you do too, Mike, because you've told me that on many occasions. And we applaud her. I mean, we and we're praying for her, and we want her to succeed. But as Mike just said, for fear of being a little redundant, he's working at it from a strictly criminal angle, and so have I actually. And we're trying to advance the criminal case, and we're trying to get VIPs involved in helping us to advance this, and we believe that's getting ready to happen. And again, I keep teasing you with that, and I'm going to let Mike tell you more about that later. But did I speak accurately there, Mike?
You did. If I could just go, one step further.
Sure.
Going into or advancing a criminal case, I want people to understand from the position of Sheriff Arpaio, the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, and myself, we are dealing with a fraudulent document. We are not here, nor have I been commissioned to address natural-born citizen or anything else.
Right.
We know we have a document. Now, once that document, which I do believe could never be brought into a courtroom and viewed as an authentic document, it will never survive the scrutiny of a judicial process.
Right.
It could never be utilized in any courtroom in its present form. That being said, once that document has been declared as such, then the gates are going to be open for all those other questions.
Right, yeah.
But this document has to be brought on trial. That's what has to happen.
Right, because the two main questions, once the document is brought on trial, and the trial determines that the document is in fact fraudulent, then the two next questions are, number one, who produced it, because they've committed a horrendous crime against the American public, and number two, why did they produce it? Does the man not have a valid birth certificate? And there's where we get to the possible birther issue. But right now, you're dealing with the criminal case of a fabricated document of the man sitting in the commander-in-chief's chair, correct?
That's correct. That's all we are looking at.
Okay, fantastic. Folks, let's do this. We're going to take a quick time out. We're going to come back. We've got your phone calls. The phone lines keep getting jammed. We're proud of that. Keep calling 850-623-1330. We'll get you on with Mike Zullo. Listen, we've got 40 more minutes of program, so just sit back, relax, and all this is going to be up on the Internet tomorrow in podcast and all over the Internet in video format, so you're not going to miss anything. We're glad that you're with us today. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back, Gulf Coast. Welcome back, America, and welcome back, Mike Zullo. Thank you for taking an hour and a half of your time today, Mike. And the phone lines are still jammed, and I'm getting texts. And Mike, I want to deal with this text. I got a text from a friend of mine who is a judge, and I've got three friends in the local area that are judges that I communicate with pretty regularly. And this judge is listening, and he wants to know, can you very quickly speak to the paper trail of the posted PDF file on the White House site? Do we have any idea of where that PDF came from? Is there any computer digital trail?
What we know is the computerized image was sitting in a Mac computer. We know it was in a program called Preview 20 minutes before it was uploaded to the White House server. The problem that we run into is Preview has a capability of erasing what's called the metadata, or the computerized language that the previous program was used to do whatever it needed to do. It wipes that clean. However, there were remnants of data there, and we do believe that two programs were used, Illustrator and I believe it was Paint Shop may have been used on the program.
Okay.
So we know that the program was compiled through a variety of different programs. Maybe it was Photoshop. I think Photoshop was the program, the first one used. It was compiled through a variety of different programs, pieced together for different reasons through those programs, which I don't want to get into.
Right.
But ultimately, it was sitting 20 minutes before in a Mac computer in Preview. We know that for sure.
Okay. Do we, and you may not be able to answer this, I'm not sure, but do we know approximate location of that computer? Do we know maybe what state or what office or what do we know about that?
We don't know. We don't know we don't know where the computer was. We don't know where the location of the upload took place. All we know is it was uploaded to a secure server, a government server, the White House server.
Okay. All right.
So common logic would bring you back to who pressed the upload button, and how did that guy get the program, and how did the guy before him get the program, and you could just work this thing backwards. Eventually, you would come to the answers.
Yeah, right. Okay. Well, listen, we got about 6 or 7 minutes on this side of the next break, and we've got the phone lines jammed, and people have some really good questions. So let me go to the next caller. The next caller up, his name is Carl. You know, Mike, what about all these people named Carl and Michael today?
I think it's a conspiracy.
It's a conspiracy. It's got to be. But Carl, welcome to Freedom Friday. You want to talk about the media ignoring this topic, and I know that Mike Zullo wants to.
Mike, I've known this guy was a fraud since 2007, thanks to Phil Berg, the attorney from Pennsylvania, Democrat, by the way. So my question to you is, we saw what happened to Lou Dobbs when he started talking about this issue. So maybe that's the answer. But why are the radio rhinos, is what I call them, like Sean Hannity, Rush Limbaugh, especially Bill O'Reilly, Mark Levin, and others, why are they so afraid of this?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Carl. Mike, you and I have talked about this for hours on end. I wish that I could answer it, but you're the one they want to hear, so go for it.
Well, I think Carl got it right on the very first sentence that he said that there's fear, there's threat.
Yep.
We know that we received information early on that certain VIPs of radio were threatened by the administration and that they wanted this dropped. We do know that the minute the birth certificate was put out on the White House website, within 24 hours, this national topic had stopped.
Yeah.
We do know that the threats were so severe that one individual fled the country for fear of her and her child. So we know that there were threats. The other side of that question, I'm not in the mind of these people, but if we take the threat equation out, you really have to start to ask yourself, why are these people not addressing this? Because if they really believe that this is a non-issue, I would have to take pause at everything they tell me from that point forward.
Yeah. And I've also said to the media, look, if you think this is a non-issue, then then Arpaio and Zulo are sitting ducks to be made fools of. Go after them. Investigate their investigation. Investigate their information. And Mike, we can't give away anything here too big, but the people who've taken us up on it have come over to your camp after they've examined the evidence, right?
Yeah, that's correct, Carl. People have seen it now. People that are prominent have seen it, and when they're done seeing it, there is only one conclusion.
Absolutely, which is why you and I are not giving up on this. We're screaming it from the rooftops. And folks, I'm going to say what Mike and I have said. This will not go away. It will not go away. We will continue to push this until it is brought forward to the world. Now, that might be 2 weeks from now, might be 2 months from now, it might be 2 years, it might be 20 years, but we're not going to let it go away. I'm not. Are you, Mike?
No, I have no plans, and I don't believe the sheriff has any plans of that either.
No, because it's so big, folks, because it's so big. Now, again, I'm going to speak for Mike Zulo. If somebody presents 100% legally verifiable evidence tomorrow that what Mike has and what I have and what Sheriff Arpaio has, if what we have is invalidated, we will declare that from the rooftops as well, because all we want is the truth. Listen, we've got time for one more caller. Very quickly. Amy, you want to ask if Mike's been talking with other sheriffs? Go ahead, Amy.
Hi, Mike. Thank you so much, first of all. Sorry to take you away from your Cheerios on this matter.
She must have been listening.
I can imagine, you know.
You're going to have to make it quick, Amy.
It's a surprise to take you away from your Cheerios, and then you find this, right? I just want to ask, have you presented this issue to other law enforcement agencies? I would think that it might be effective to go sideways on this and present it to other, I'm sure there's a sheriff's organization.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you. And we've got to cut you off. Hey, Mike, we've got 60 seconds. Can you answer it then, or do you want to hold over to the other side of the room?
I can answer
go ahead.
Really quick.
Go ahead.
The problem, Amy, with going sideways in this is you start running into a lot of political agendas. Not every sheriff is elected like Sheriff Arpaio. Some are appointed in places. But that being the case, you run into a lot of politics.
Mm-hmm.
And we're trying to cut a clear path.
Right.
Now, there are sheriffs that I know want to hear what we have to say, and we'll make those plans accordingly. But we, right now, are in possession of the criminal evidence, and we would rather keep it that way and move the way that we're moving currently.
Brilliant answer, Mike. Thank you so much. Folks, you're listening to the voice there of Mike Zulo, the commander of the Arpaio Cold Case Posse. We will be back after this brief timeout. We'll have another whole 30 minutes with Mike Zulo for your questions, plus some surprise revelations that you don't want to miss. You're listening to Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups, Mallory Bardwell, your world-famous producer, Mike Zulo, our guest. We'll be right back.
How can one man bother so many people by simply telling the truth? Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups, the Oval Office of Gulf Coast Talk Radio.
All right, welcome back, America. Welcome back, world. And Mike Zulo is with us today. We've got another good 30 minutes of the show, and we're going to take more calls. And then eventually Mike and I are just going to take 10 minutes or so and just tell you stuff that's happening, things that have been discovered new, people that are involved. We can't give exact details and names, but we can speak in generalities to let you know what's actually happening. Let me just say this. We were talking a few moments ago about people being afraid and VIPs and news media, et cetera, et cetera. One of the things that Mike and I accomplished at CPAC is we made contact and connections and networked with some very, very important people. We also ran across some people of character and of weak will that shocked us. One of the people that Mike and I have outed in the last couple of weeks has been Colonel Alan West, who looked right at Mike Zulo and said, look, I'm not going to get involved in this because I have future political aspirations. I mean, even after he knows the evidence, sees the evidence, or didn't see it, excuse me, but, heard about it and knows what's going on, he didn't even want to look any further, didn't want to help any further because, in his words, he was more concerned about his political future. So this is the kind of stuff, folks, that, we've been running up against. However, we've also, and we're going to tell you in a few moments, we've got some very important people who are on board now, and we should hope to see some things happen soon. I'll let Mike tell you about that. But I will say this, I'm going to be outing some more people very soon. Another VIP that made some big promises to to us and was going to have a meeting with us and was going to examine the evidence further, made promises to us. We've got the email chains. We've got it in writing. We've got witnesses and phone conversations to his offices. That person backed out on us, and backing out is not a problem because they certainly have the freedom to do that. But they called me and said, "We don't remember making these promises to you." I mean, that's how freaky this stuff gets, folks. And I've got the email chain. I reminded them of that. I think they forgot about it because you could hear them gulp when I said it. But I'm going to be exposing that over the next couple of Fridays. I'll read the emails to you and tell you who it was, just like we told you about Colonel West. Mike, you ready to take some more calls?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, good. Bob, welcome to Freedom Friday. You want to talk about is there cause to charge a felony? I think I read that correctly. Ask your question to Mike Zullo.
Thank you, Carl. This is Bob Powell from The Truth is Viral. Detective Zullo, I wanted to thank you and Sheriff Arpaio for all the awesome work you've done. As a matter of fact, I used you guys in my episode that I entitled The New Declaration of Independence, Impeach Obama Now, as the epitome of manly firmness opposing Obama. So, thank you on behalf of the people of the United States of America. Now, here's my question. Before I went in the Marine Corps, I spent a year taking criminal justice. And while I was engrossed in my studies, I learned that when there's a felony committed, even if it's committed outside of the presence of a law enforcement officer, that person can be arrested. Now, do you have probable cause to believe that Barack Obama may have committed a felony?
All right, thank you for that call, Bob. You know, a lot of people ask that. Mike?
Probable cause that Barack Obama committed a felony. I guess that's going to be determined on what level. If you're asking me, do we have probable cause that Barack Obama sat down at a computer and put together a phony birth certificate? The answer is no.
Right.
I don't believe the man did that,
right,
to be candid with you. However, there are some legal hurdles as to putting up a document that's fraudulently created, using a document that's fraudulently created to get a benefit.
Right.
In that case, I think you probably could go there. But again, those are legal theories and legal arguments that would have to ensue. But if it were you or I taking our birth certificate, trying to use it to get on a ballot in an upcoming election, and we offered up a phony document, and we got that position because people felt comfortable that the question had been answered by what we offered, and we were receiving compensation as a result of that electoral turnout, I think we would be indicted immediately.
Yeah, be in big trouble. You're going to like this next question. Somebody, let me see here. Fred wants to ask you about the future of the investigation, Mike. Fred, thank you so much for being a part of Freedom Friday. Go ahead and ask your question.
Well, first I want to talk about the past. You said several times you went into this investigation with a completely open mind, and yet there was a conservative who spent hundreds of hours analyzing the long-form birth certificate and this whole situation, even wrote a book about it. He offered to help the cold case posse, but you wouldn't even talk to him. His name was John Woodman. So I think you're probably why shouldn't I think you're a liar when you said you...
Okay, I'm not going to let you call him a liar, but that's a good question, though. You asked a good question, but Fred, you're not going to call up here and call people names. All right, so Mike, do you want to answer his question about who you're allowing to be a part of the investigation, who you're not?
Yeah, actually, the individual that he's talking about is an individual that touts himself as some kind of computer expert.
Yeah.
And he wrote a book in support of this document claiming to be someone who was, I believe, a Republican and not interested in Mr. Obama on any level. However, we did get a copy of the book. Now, I have no correspondence from this individual saying that he wanted to help us. As a matter of fact, I repetitively have said that if anyone can produce any evidence to the contrary, evidence, not conjecture, evidence,
right.
and want to come into the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, I would be more than willing to receive them.
Right, and you're
Let
not...
me just touch. He mentioned the guy's name, so I'm going to finish this.
Yes, please.
The background into that gentleman, he is a defunct entrepreneur. He's an individual that I understand is no longer in the, quote, computer business. He at one time withdrew from this and then was recruited back into it. Don't believe any of his work that we ever in possession of. His book, in our very first meeting with our computer experts, we went through the scenarios that he outlaid in his book. None of them could be duplicated.
Yeah.
Everything he put in that book was merely speculation and conjecture. As a matter of fact, the individual was using a substandard program trying to offer up these solutions to the dilemma. And they just paled. They just didn't even work.
And you know, Mike, I'm sorry, go ahead, finish.
Well, no, this is part of the tactic. This is part of the tactic. When I talk to you about disinformation,
right,
this is part of the tactic. They take a guy, they prop him up there, they call him an expert, and they want to trout him around saying that he's got the solution, he's got the answers, he can disprove this when in fact he can't.
Right.
Then they go to the next level and they call you a liar.
Right.
Or they call you something else.
Right.
Well, I want to make this really clear. I have the evidence.
Right.
I have undeniable evidence that this document is a 100% forgery.
And we've got...
Make no mistake about it.
Thank you. And we've got big people who have seen it, who are looking at it, and who are freaking out, and who are more than likely, if they'll do what they say, they're getting ready to do something about it. So Mike's got the evidence. Let me say this about that, Mike. I'm sure you answered Fred's question, but you're also not in the business of helping people sell books either.
No, don't do that.
I mean, see, I think what people need to hear, and I think they've heard this today, you are a lawman. You are a professional investigator. You're working for Sheriff Arpaio of Maricopa County, a huge sheriff's office of the county that's the capital of Arizona, and you know, hundreds of officers, and you're on the cold case posse. This is a big deal, and this is criminal. This is not some little rinky-dink little thing, and you're not out to help people sell books, and you're not trying to get a civil case going. You're dealing with a criminal fraud perpetrated against the United States of America, right?
That about sizes it up, Carl. This is one of the most sensitive investigations I think that could be done. Because you're talking about going against a machine.
Yeah. Well, listen, let's take another time out, and we'll come back, and let's you and I disclose some things that we can disclose and give people a good flavor of what's going on and how they can donate and be a part of helping move this investigation along, okay?
Sure.
All right, good deal. Folks, we're going to take a quick time out, then we've got some exciting information to give you. You're listening to Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups. Mike Zullo will be right back. All right, Mike Zullo, listen, let me look at the board. Okay, I see that. We've got just enough time to deal with some things that I think a lot of folks have, tuned in to hear. First of all, let me just set you up. Let me just ask you a couple things. Just recently, now if I say anything wrong, you correct me. So I'm just going to try to set you up so that you can speak accurately. But it's my understanding that just recently, in the last couple of days, that you have come across even more evidence, new evidence, more evidence that just puts the nail in the coffin on this thing. I mean, it's just 1,000% a forgery. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. This is going to be hands down very easy for someone to come to the conclusion. It is a 100% forgery. It has been, I can't even say meticulously, it has been haphazardly put together. It is so evident, so easy to see, and this new information we have just solidifies it.
Yeah. Okay, fantastic. The next question I'll throw your way is it not true that there are several VIPs, very important people, people of standing, people of in powerful positions, that have seen the evidence and or are making arrangements to see it, but they know about it and are speaking very seriously with you about helping to move this along to a criminal investigation level, at a level that something could actually happen. Is that true?
That's true, Carl. I just cannot speak to that at any length.
I know you can't, and but that's why I was couching it in very, very general terms. But so, folks, I want you to know there is a plan of action in the works. New authorities are involved and or are promising to get involved, and we cannot say who or at what level, but they are people of standing and very important people. And just in the last couple of days, new evidence has come to light that just seals the deal. The deal was already sealed, but this new evidence came to light from a very legally credible source that said, oh my gosh, look what we just found. And they are now, Lieutenant Zullo, Sheriff Arpaio, they are now in possession of that evidence. So is it not true, Mike, that when VIPs step forward at federal levels, state levels, and they come to you and say, look, all right, we're ready to get something done, is it not true that you have in your possession the case they need? It's done, it's wrapped up, you've got a bow around it, you've got a gift for any VIP that wants to be the hero of the United States of America and go down in history as being the hero of the United States of America. You've got a gift for them, don't you?
I do, Carl, and I'm just gonna. I wasn't gonna bring this up, but I'm gonna say it now, without going into a lot of detail. I want your listeners to understand that the work that we did over the last 15, 16 months has been verified.
Yeah.
And I'm going to leave it at that.
Yeah.
That's how strong it is.
It has been verified. Thank you. That's a good way to say it. Yeah. All right. Gosh, I've got so many questions in my mind that I wanted to run by. Oh, another one. So tell people how they can donate. Now, this is not paid for with taxpayer dollars. This is paid for totally, this investigation and moving it forward. I mean, your travel expenses, everything is paid for by people who donate. And you're anticipating some big travel expenses coming up because we think that here very soon some big things are going to happen. So tell folks how they can donate.
Yeah, the Cold Case Posse is a 501c3. It's a non-profit organization, and everything that we do in this investigation, we have to find a way to fund it. The Maricopa County Sheriff's Office cannot use funds to fund this investigation. As such, we have a website set up. It's www.mcsoccp.org. I believe they could also go to PP Simmons, and there's a link there. If we can get $10 or $15, if we got $10 or $15 from everybody listening to us right now, it would be more than enough money to get us to where we have to go.
Right.
And hopefully bring this to some kind of conclusion.
Right. Folks, you can go to PP Simmons' Facebook. You can go to carlgallops.com/Obama. Just do that, /Obama. carlgallops.com/Obama. It'll redirect you immediately to the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office Cold Case Posse site. And he said it was MCSOCCP, and that stands for Maricopa County Sheriff's Office Cold Case Posse, MCSOCCP.org. But we do need, I don't get any donations, but they do need donations because that's the money they use to operate, and this is getting so close. Well, Mike, of course I know the details, you know the details. We cannot share all the details, but if the people we're talking, that you're talking to right now, and I mean just in the last 48 hours, you've had some deep and serious conversations and follow-up conversations. Plus, there are people I'm getting ready to out as well. but the people you're talking to are people who are sticking with this. They've made promises. They're following through so far, and if they continue to follow through, you look for something pretty big to bust on this relatively soon. Can we give any hint at all about a general time frame so that people can be kind of looking at?
Carl, that's always an iffy proposition.
Yeah,
I could say within the next 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
It just things, the wheels of justice turn slowly.
I know.
And we have a lot of work to do ahead of us just there. And if that does happen, there's a lot of work to do after that happens.
That's true. But there is a definitive plan of action in the works with some people of standing who can make it happen. They're making the promises, and they know what you have. They know you're getting ready to hand them a gift, and we're excited about that. Am I right?
Yes, I am, very much so.
Yeah, okay. And so, folks, that's because this is a criminal investigation. Mike can't get on here and give you names and times and dates and places and offices and titles. He can't do that. You understand that. Our listeners know that. This is serious. This is of national concern. Somebody might ask me, Carl, why are you going to out this poor dude that lied to you? Well, because I'm tired of playing, folks. This is national security. This goes to our constitutional republic. I want our constitutional republic preserved. There has been a crime committed in and around the White House. We've got 100% proof of it. I want to know who did it and why, because I want to know who the commander-in-chief is. And that's where I stand on this. So this is not going away unless somebody brings 100% evidence forward, legal evidence to show us that, look, everything is perfectly legal. And that's your heart as well, isn't it, Mike?
It is. I can tell you certainty that there is no one that's going to be able to do that.
Yeah, I know. I guess that's why I can be so bold saying that.
Look, let me just say one other thing.
Yeah.
To
you take the rest of the time. Say whatever you want.
You know, you and I had the privilege while we were at CPAC. We took, before our flight Sunday morning back, we had the privilege of going to Mount Vernon.
Oh.
We had the privilege of standing in the same bedroom looking at the same bed that George Washington passed away in.
Yep.
We got to see a closer view of the man.
Yep.
Then we got to go to, the Lincoln Memorial, and we saw the Washington Monument, and we saw the White House, and we were in the Capitol. You know, you have to really put this into perspective. A sitting president is no longer a private citizen.
Right.
A sitting president, once he gets into that exclusive club, he is now part of a chain of history that goes all the way back to George Washington.
Right.
And if you go back in time, every sitting president was transparent about records, places of birth, anything that they were asked. It was there, and it was easy for anyone to say.
Yep.
This is the only time that I could recall that it's happened this way.
Yep.
Where everything has been secretive and shoved away, out of sight.
Yeah, and threats have been made, and disinformation campaigns have ensued. And Mike, I got to tell our listeners this because you and I were blown away. So we're at Mount Vernon, and we've been through the estate. We're in the bedroom where Washington died. We're in his house. We're overwhelmed by all this. We walk back down to the museum, and there's an elderly gentleman there who's been, guiding tours, etc. And I asked him, I said, well, I think you asked him, and then you told him to repeat it. That's right. You asked him first. Has Barack Obama visited Mount Vernon? And the man looked at me and Lieutenant Zullo and said, he's the only president in U.S. history who's never set foot on this property.
Yeah, he did. He did say that.
Mike and I were so ashamed. It just blew us away. The guy almost cried when he said it. He's the only president in U.S. history who has never set foot on Mount Vernon property. But Mike and I know why, we think. Let me speak for myself here, Mike, because I want to keep you at the highest professional level. Because when you're there, all you see and hear about is character, character, character. I think I know why Obama has not been there. Mike Zullo, thank you for being a part of the show today. I know we're going to do more shows like this as it moves along because some big stuff's getting ready to happen.
Thanks, Carl. Thanks for having me. God bless.
God bless you as well. Folks, you've been listening to Freedom Friday with Carl Gallups, Mallory Bardwell, your world-famous producer. Mike Zullo's been on for the last hour and a half. Ted Schubot before that. Go to carlgallups.com tomorrow. Download the podcast. Plus, over the next couple of days, I know Mike Shoesmith, the P.P. Simmons Facebook and YouTube and Blogspot Ministries, will be uploading this entire show. It'll be all over the Internet. Plus, again, you can get it at carlgallups.com. Go up to the top, click on where it says Get Podcasts here. I'm sorry about the stream going down today. It was just overloaded with listeners, and there might have been a little cyber attack going on. We've had that in the past, so it wouldn't surprise me if that was a part of it today. But we'll be back next Friday, and we'll keep you abreast of all of this that's going on. You'll hear it only here. God bless you. God bless America.